1. Which instructional strategy best supports adult learners preparing for the CELD by reinforcing both language acquisition and self-direction? A. Assigning lengthy textbook chapters without guided practice. B. Using task-based activities connected to real workplace communication. C. Having learners memorize isolated vocabulary lists. D. Requiring learners to complete repetitive grammar worksheets. 2. When assessing CELD speaking skills, which method provides the most valid measurement of functional communication? A. Asking learners to read scripted dialogue silently. Evaluating spontaneous responses during real-life scenario prompts. C. Giving learners a multiple-choice grammar quiz. D. Asking learners to recite a list of academic vocabulary terms. 3. Which practice best aligns CELD instruction with adult learning principles during listening preparation? A. Playing audio recordings only once, regardless of learner needs. B. Using authentic audio materials tied to personal or professional relevance. C. Limiting learners to classroom-only listening tasks. D. Avoiding feedback to promote independent learning. 4. Under CELD guidelines, which curriculum development step ensures compliance with standardized language proficiency frameworks? A. Creating lessons informally based on teacher preference. B. Mapping objectives directly to official CELD skill descriptors. C. Designing activities unrelated to assess competencies. D. Focusing solely on grammar and ignoring communicative tasks. 5. Which technique most effectively evaluates CELD reading comprehension in adult learners? Having learners summarize passages using graphic organizers. Asking learners to memorize the passage. C. Only assessing learners on vocabulary matching. D. Providing answers before the reading task. 6. During CELD test preparation, which communication approach best supports learners with varied proficiency levels? A. Using highly technical explanations without examples. B. Delivering instructions with simplified language and visual supports. C. Avoiding clarification questions. D. Speaking quickly to encourage real-time processing. 7. Which mentoring technique helps adult learners increase confidence in CELD writing tasks? A. Providing constructive, strengths-based, individualized feedback. B. Giving only the final score without comments. C. Focusing solely on errors without acknowledging progress. D. Restricting learners from asking questions about their performance. 8. Which regulatory consideration must instructors follow when administering official CELD assessments? A. Allowing personalized coaching during the test. B. Maintaining testing integrity by following standardized procedures. C. Modifying test content to match class lessons. D. Granting unlimited breaks upon learner request. 9. Which curriculum modification best supports CELD learners who struggle with academic vocabulary? Integrating explicit instruction with contextual application tasks. B. Removing all academic vocabulary from lessons. C. Teaching vocabulary only through dictionary definitions. D. Assigning vocabulary lists without practice activities. 10. Which method strengthens evaluation reliability in CELD writing assessments? A. Using a rubric aligned with official proficiency standards. B. Scoring based on the teacher's general impression. C. Grading only based on handwriting neatness. D. Ignoring rubric criteria when time is limited. 11. Which practice improves adult learner engagement in CELD speaking preparation? A. Conducting interviews tied to workplace or real-world tasks. Having learners repeat scripted statements only. C. Giving speaking practice without feedback. D. Limiting speaking practice to large group discussions. 12. What is the most effective way to introduce CELD reading strategies for adults with varied backgrounds? A. Teaching skimming, scanning, and annotation through real-life text samples. B. Allowing learners to choose whether they want strategies, focusing solely on fiction passages, Using unfamiliar scientific text exclusively. 13. Which instructional method best supports CELD listening skill development? A. Providing multiple listening opportunities with guided comprehension checks. B. Using audio only once without preview. C. Avoiding discussion after listening activities. D. Using unrelated sound clips for practice. 14. Which adult learning principle is most relevant when selecting CELD writing prompts? A. Relevance to real-life scenarios and personal experiences. B. Complexity beyond learner background knowledge. C. Prompts unrelated to adult contexts. D. Prompts requiring memorized responses. 15. Which strategy ensures fairness during CELD test administration? A. Following standardized timing and instructions exactly as required. B. Giving extra time to all learners regardless of rules. C. Allowing learners to choose which sections to complete. D. Adjusting items based on learner preference. 16. When coaching adults on CELD speaking proficiency, which mentoring approach is most effective? A. Modeling fluent responses and guiding learners through structured practice. B. Avoiding model examples to promote independence. C. Correcting every error during natural conversation. D. Limiting practice to once per week. 17. Which feedback approach promotes adult learner progress in CELD listening skills? A. Providing specific examples of misunderstood segments. B. Giving only a final score. C. Stating listen harder without explanation. D. Avoiding detailed comments. 18. Which curriculum design component ensures cell-aligned instruction? A. Including measurable language objectives tied to assessed competencies. B. Designing lessons randomly without outcomes. C. Writing objectives unrelated to test domains. Creating activities with no evaluation criteria. 19. Which teaching strategy builds CELD vocabulary retention in adults? A. Using repeated exposure in meaningful communication tasks. B. Limiting vocabulary to one exposure per lesson. C. Avoiding review activities. D. Using only rote memorization drills. 20. Which adult learning technique supports CELD reading readiness? A. Activating prior knowledge before reading tasks. B. Starting with complex passages without preparation. C. Having learners read silently without direction. D. Skipping previews or predictions. 21. What is the most valid method to assess speaking fluency for CELD? A. Rating clarity and flow during open-ended communication tasks. B. Counting total words spoken only. C. Measuring how loudly learners speak. D. Assessing fluency based solely on grammar accuracy. 22. Which practice strengthens CELD test preparation communication? Giving clear step-by-step modeling of each item type. B. Providing instructions with vague explanation. C. Avoiding demonstrations during practice. D. Using highly technical terminology without clarification. 23. Which strategy improves CELD writing performance for adult learners? A. Teaching planning techniques such as outlines and graphic organizers. B. Starting with timed writing only. C. Avoiding revision activities. D. Focusing only on grammar correction. 24. Which evaluation method provides a fair measure of CELD listening performance? A. Using comprehension tasks aligned with real-life communication demands. B. Scoring learners solely based on guessing accuracy. C. Allowing answers before audio plays. D. Using audio unrelated to test standards. 25. Which mentoring practice benefits CELD learners with test anxiety? A. Guiding them through structured practice routines with reassurance. B. Telling them anxiety is unacceptable. C. Avoiding discussion of anxiety management. D. Using surprise assessments frequently. 26. Which curriculum element best integrates CELD writing standards? A. Daily tasks emphasizing organization, clarity, and language accuracy. B. Lessons unrelated to written communication. C. Activities focusing only on handwriting. D. Removing writing tasks altogether. In CELD-aligned instruction, which activity boosts oral language development? A. Structured pair dialogues using real-life functional tasks. B. Silent reading tasks only. C. Copying sentences without speaking. D. Watching videos without discussion. 28. Which adult communication practice supports CELD classroom success? A. Providing models, examples, and simplified academic language. B. Using complex terminology exclusively. C. Avoiding repetition to save time. D. Limiting opportunities for learners to ask questions. 29. Which CELD reading preparation method increases comprehension for adults? A. Practicing inference, main idea, and detail identification using relevant texts. B. Focusing solely on memorizing definitions. C. Having learners guess answers without strategy. D. Avoiding text analysis activities. 30. Which evaluation technique increases objectivity in CELD scoring? A. Using standardized rubrics consistently across learners. B. Adjusting scores based on personal rapport. C. Scoring differently depending on effort. D. Allowing subjective interpretation of criteria. 31. Which adult learning strategy strengthens CELD vocabulary mastery? Encouraging learners to use new vocabulary in personal or job-related contexts. Teaching vocabulary only through isolated drills. C. Avoiding vocabulary repetition. Giving long lists without practice. 32. What is the primary purpose of CELD-aligned listening tasks? Measuring understanding of spoken English in academic and social contexts. B. Testing memorization of written text. C. Evaluating handwriting ability. D. Assessing math problem solving.